Near the end of September this year, I took a fall vacation for 2 weeks, and I went to the island of Shikoku, which is the fourth largest island in Japan. I've been to Shikoku before, but it was my least visited island. And since I've traveled by bicycle all over Japan, I really want to see, I want to see Shikoku before, while I still had time before I left Japan. So I decided to take a ferry from Tokyo. I arrived in Tokushima, and I spent the next 2 weeks just cycling through the beautiful island. On my first day, I bicycled from my home to Arayake in Tokyo, which is the Odaiba area. It's about 60 kilometers, took me a few hours, and that's where I took the ferry to Tokushima. 18-hour ferry ride, but it was quite nice. Get a sleeping room and whatnot. Arrived at about 1:30 in the afternoon the next day. And so I only cycled for a few hours that day. And then following that, that began my trip. One of the interesting things about Shikoku is the Yohenro-san. The Yohenro are basically pilgrims or people that are on a pilgrimage, and the way to properly do is to start at Tokushima. And you basically do a circle around the island by walking. There are people that do it by bus or by bicycle, but the proper way to do it is to visit 88 temples by walking. And this usually takes several months. Some people do it in different legs. They don't do the whole thing in one journey, but some people do, and they're on the road for days, weeks, months. But I met quite a few of them, and I saw even more of them as they were hiking along through Shikoku. Mostly on the eastern coast is where I ran into them. And everyone had a story to tell, why they were doing it, or whether it was their first time or not. I asked them, I actually talked to quite a few of them. I asked them about, getting food and water, where they stayed, why they were doing it, when they started, how long they had left.
ずっと回る88まで回って、一番にお礼参りします。それから高野山行きます。だから43日か45日になるかな。
すごいです。
そうしだから雨が降ったらお休みだし、いやでもそちらこそすごい。
初めてですか、このお遍路の。
3回目。1回目はバスとかそういうの使ったから、これじゃちょっとずるだなと。歩いてみようってことで2回目歩きました。でも道間違えて大変でした。今度は失敗しないようにきちっと歩こうと思って決心してきました。
Two of the things that really stood out in Shikoku for me, the two of the main highlights, I should say, is one was cycling along the Shikanto River. It's the Shikanto River is the longest river in Shikoku. It's 120 miles long, which is about 196 kilometers, and it's the only undammed river in Shikoku, which means so there's no control for flooding. And they have a series of bridges called Chinkabashi, or Chinka Bridge. And the unique thing about these bridges is that, and you could cycle over them or drive over them, but there's no guardrails, they're very narrow. And the reason for that is because of the flooding. Like I said, they don't have dams to help. The water can flow under and over the bridge. They're actually called submersible bridges, okay? And the water, because there's no guardrails and nothing underneath, like structurally, it's just really a platform on stands, debris and garbage and stuff like that doesn't get caught in it during a large rain, a large flooding. And it was interesting to bicycle over this bridge because, like I said, there's nothing on either side, and you feel like as you're cruising along that you could easily go off the edge, and you can, because two cars really can't get by. It does widen out in a few spots so that if there is an oncoming car, they can just sort of slide by. And another highlight, something that I wanted to do when I went to Shikoku, was cycle along the Shimanomikaido. The Shimanomikaido is a series of bridges that span the inland sea of Japan from between Shikoku Island and Honshu, the main island of Japan. And the Shimanomikaido is a series of bridges that connect all these islands, but there's also a cycling course. There's a cycling road which is a little over 70 kilometers long, and it connects Imabari to Onomichi. And Imabari is in Shikoku, Onomichi is in Hiroshima Prefecture on the island of Honshu. The trip on the Shimanomikaido cycling course was fantastic. First of all, you go across 7 bridges, and these are very, very large suspension bridges for the most part. And you know, you're cycling along, you have this dedicated cycling lane, you're good, you're cruising along, not having to worry about the cars. And at the end of the bridge, the cycling course intentionally takes you on a scenic tour. So you have to get off at each island, and you basically cycle the whole island. So you might spend an hour on the island before you get to the next bridge. Real pleasure to do that. And I recommend that to anyone. If nothing else, go down to either Hiroshima Prefecture or Shikoku and cycle along the Shimanomikaido, the cycling course. As I mentioned, during a journey you meet a lot of people, and sometimes it's just a passing hello, good luck. Other times you have a little bit more of a conversation, but always remember the advice of an older lady who was sort of the road construction guard. She was basically there to explain that the road had closed. And this is along the Shikanto River. And she says, I want to give you some advice.
ちょっとアドバイスしてあげる。沈下橋をね、ただたーっとこれで走るがやなくしてね。一旦ここ、降りて自転車を、橋の上歩いてみる。
あ、そう。
歩いたらね、川面の風受けて、歩いて眺めた下、川の清流、流れ、普通の橋からは見えない、体験できる、そんな楽しみ方してみて。
This woman, yeah, she got it. You know what I mean? She gets it. Like, yeah, stop once in a while and just appreciate the moment. Appreciate where you are. You know, look up at the mountains. Look down at the water. Experience the moment. You know, don't just fly by, rushing by. Because there's a lot to see sometimes just when you stop and look around at where you are. A lot of people ask me, you know, why I do the bicycle touring. You know, whenever I take a vacation, it's usually a bicycle trip. Not every day is easy. In fact, there's at least a part of every day that's horrible. There are full days that are just absolutely grueling. But at the end of every day, like when you finish, it's such a feeling of accomplishment, and you feel strongly, you feel better. Mentally, it does wonders. You just feel so much better. And the next day, you get up and you do it again. And it's all fresh. It's not like, oh, I gotta do this again. No, you get up, you do it again, and it's like, yeah. And you have the tough times again. You do. There's no way out of it. But sometimes it's the people you meet along the way. I met some fellow cyclists along the way that were also touring. As I mentioned earlier, I talked about the Yohenro-san. Sometimes you just stop at a convenience store and some curious old man or woman comes up and asks you what you're doing, and all of a sudden you're having a conversation with them for 5-10 minutes. And that's what it's all about. It's like the people you meet, it's like, even if you were having kind of a bad day or people just, the curiosity and the encouragement from people that you meet, that makes it worth it.